Oh, now it is. Okay.
I believe so.
Yes,
Okay,
I just had my little button pop up saying that recording and transcription is in progress.
that is wonderful. Okay, so we are live, and my name is Billy Gerchick, first year composition professor, and I'm here with my dean, Karen Hindhede, who is interim dean of academic dean of arts and sciences. And a little bit of background: the purpose of this is to practice interview skills in what I think is a relevant context to do web conferencing. This is for the sake of eye searching and the interview being a component for that project. But I hope this gives a beneficial and even improvise imperfect example on how we can prepare for interviews with our topic experts as college students. So we are going to jump right into this soon. One thing to mention: I prepared 5 interview questions, which is what I recommend for my students, and I give a template to guide the conversation. But an advantage of this as a strategy, actually doing web conferencing with the ability to capture text, is that it allows the interviewer and the topic expert to go back and forth as naturally as possible in a conversation without focusing on transcription, but rather focusing on human connection and back and forth learning. And that's the heart of what we're doing here. So let's begin. Action, and here we go. So, Dr. Hindhede, thank you very much for your time. And a little bit of background: I am part of the last generation to grow up without the internet. So I have experienced not just non-artificial intelligence forms of learning, but very little technology mediated learning. Yet I am at a point in my career where I need to grow through new technologies to serve student needs, and part of that is artificial intelligence. So that said, my semester iSearch research question is: contextualized through my iSearch English 102 courses in the spring of 2025, what instructional and generative AI resources can enhance individualized research writing in an English 102 course? So, Doc, given your background as an English professor, as an English department head, and now as academic dean of arts and sciences, how would you begin to approach my central research question?
Okay. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Um, One of the things that I appreciated that you did, um, Professor Gerchick, is post the question that you had for me in the chat. That's really helpful for anyone, being interviewed. Um, People also always like having the questions sent to them ahead of time too. So that's another option for students if they have, the time to do that. Um, as I look at the question and contextualizing the iSearch, and it's for your English 102 courses. One of the things that I think in terms of enhancing the individual research writing, maybe. So I'm repeating the question as I'm kind of thinking through this.
Maybe
Um,
my question is too specific. Perhaps even just as a first year composition professor, what is the role of instructional and generative AI? How could they be used to enhance research? Sorry, just enhance student learning. Let's keep it at that.
mhm, mhm.
Considering what is the point when a technology like this can be beneficial for students' learning, including the job world that they're going into, but also at what point can it actually do harm and limit student learning? So
Sure, sure.
contextualize that however you choose.
I think we're in a fascinating time period in our history. We know that there have been various points in our history where the steam engine or, the car was invented, and started to be put out into production, and that, more recently was occurring with things like personal computers, with cell phones. I see that very much the case with AI right now, and it is exploding so fast and changing so quickly, and it is both frightening and exciting.
Right.
I think that the responsibility of learners in a 102 class, as well as the professor, is to look at these tools and consider how they can be used ethically, and effectively to learn, to grow, to use them in a scholarly way, an academic way, as well as how they might be used in the workplace, because they're certainly going to be here in the future. And at the same time, not rely on them to do the thinking for us. Um, it is absolutely our job as faculty and as students, as people, members of society, to use the technology as a tool for our own improvement and thinking, and moving forward. And kind of also speaking to what you were talking about with the instructional aspect, I think part of that is also helping students focus on what it is that they want to learn and do. So we are looking at the college, for the college to purchase software called Packback, which is instructional AI rather than generative AI. The generative AI is what we think of with ChatGPT or Claude, and the instructional AI, helps students in sort of a coaching method, kind of reviewing the topics and asking questions, the sort of Socratic method. Professor Gerchick, you have been a huge proponent and the driver in bringing this request to the college for instructional AI. So this is one way that I think is an excellent professional way that faculty can be on the forefront of helping students with this new technology. Um, it's so interesting that we're talking about this because, and speaking, I love new technology, but I also have these post-it notes that have gotten away from me, but I have this post-it note here. A colleague stopped by my office yesterday and just mentioned about napkin AI. It's brand new.
Napkin AI.
Napkin. Yeah. Yeah.
Never heard of
Napkin.
that.
I hadn't either. But it's so new that both the professional and the general versions are both free for a limited time. And it is a way of using AI to generate infographics.
Hmm.
So visual graphs of material that needs to be shown, shared. And so I haven't had a chance to play around with it, but that's another type of aspect, especially for English 102. A lot of the information can be multimodal and can be in a visual format. And so maybe using things like Napkin AI to generate ideas, to create infographics, to create that visual in order to share the research that students have been doing with one another could be a productive use of AI.
And I think you bring up such an important point, that while AI may be something to be valued in a course, how do students learn and how do we build off of those practices? I laughed when you showed me the sticky notes, because I wake up every morning and make a list of things I do. And there's actually a lot of research that shows the physical contact of a pen or a pencil to a paper, including checking off a to-do list, can actually be very therapeutic. for
Yes.
for for students or for people.
Yeah, I have read some of the same or similar research that you get a little endorphin high when
Yeah,
you've completed a task and you check it off. Or for me, I'm like, scratch it off, just really outline that out.
absolutely. Um, so segueing into the next question, and thank you very much. I think a key takeaway is we are in a time of change, and while going forward, I know that part of something that we may have an advantage, including for our younger learners, is the training to learn without technology as much. And that can be something that should be emphasized as well. Now, into the next question. On AI being used in higher education, some faculty, like me, are already using and want to incorporate AI into our practices, while other faculty have no interest in incorporating AI or even an outright opposition to other colleagues using AI. Um, some have these different opinions. What would you say about AI's role in higher education?
Sure, sure. I think of this the way I do with a lot of other technology, or theories, teaching ideas, aspects. Um, and sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you hearing that, Billy?
That is, let me mute myself. And class, this is a teachable moment. I'm going to mute my microphone. I have an old computer that is running a lot. It may sound like a vacuum, so I'm going to put myself on mute.
Oh, sure, sure. And it's gone now, actually. Um, oh, okay, you've already muted. Okay. Well, when I think of it this way, and this for me helps, and it's really with a lot of different things in even in the workplace, as well as in academics. I think of this as the bell curve. And students may have come across this, but with the bell curve, there's about 10% of people who are at the front end of the bell curve leading the pack. And this is where you are with the instructional AI. And then there's the hump up here where this is most of the faculty, most employees, where it's like, I'm interested in AI. I have concerns about AI. Not that you don't have concerns as well, um, but they're sort of in the middle, and they'll dabble a little bit. They'll try a little bit. I think that's, you know, healthy. I'm kind of probably a bit in that hump too, maybe a little bit more out this way, just in terms of interest or excitement. And then that first part where it's here before it gets to the hump, that's another 10%. And those are the 10% that are like, no way, not interested, not willing to try this out. And in this instance with AI, I feel that that's okay at this point. Um, I think as faculty, we have a responsibility to kind of be up on the learning trends of what's going on, and AI is certainly there. Um, and my impression of the faculty that have resistance to AI is not necessarily that they don't want to learn about it, it's that they don't want to use it. So to me, that is still a difference. I also think that that mimics what students will experience in the workplace, because you may have some companies, some bosses that are really interested in trying certain tools, or a company that has a particular um, stance on a topic or an issue. And as an employee and then as a student, you have to sort of adapt and work with your faculty member or your boss or your company, along the way, and yet still be responsive to your own interests and sort of where you fall. And I think this is going to be the case for students too. There's going to be some students that are much more comfortable trying this out than others. And that's one of the exciting things I think about working with this in a college class is that for the majority of the people that are in sort of that bump, this is a great place to, to practice. And that's the only way we learn in terms of our comfort level and what we want to, go forward. So it's a safe space to practice and to learn.
Like our interview, for example. We're practicing web conferencing, which I'll just speak personally, wasn't something I used much at all until the pandemic. And that is a skill that may benefit, but we are all practicing. I think you hit a key word. For the last 3 semesters, 2 at Mesa Community College, 1 at Central Arizona College, and now currently at ASU and Central Arizona College, experimenting with AI in a comfortable space where students are practicing and getting to apply skills and make their own conclusions about how AI may have a role in helping their learning, or it may have its limitations as something gimmicky, which could write cool poetry, but may not necessarily be a learning tool. Practice, I think, being a key word, and I appreciate the balanced answer. Now let's get to something, what I think is fun, and forgetting some of the guardrails of academia and just having some fun exploring an idea. So you have experience teaching children's literature classes, and you've been published in the Journal of Sustainability Education for your work. I'm going to read this so I get the title right. The Spinning and Weaving of Yarns Around the Fire, a Council of All Beings Story for Children and its Multiple Implications. In it, you suggest that children could co-create storytelling activities and picture books together. So here's my question. Could a college student or even a child benefit from co-creating a pictures book or other creative products with the help of artificial intelligence?
Wow.
What say you to that crazy idea?
I love co-creating as an instructional method. Um, and usually when you do the co-creating, you have some type of multimodal end product. So it might be, a video, it might be an infograph, it might be a skit, a poster board, whatever. Those are all what we mean by multimodal. It's not just the written text. And I'm just sharing that for your students. And so to me, that collaborative, that's the co-creating collaborative aspect, is what's really enjoyable to then create something together. I think absolutely that can be done with AI. I would say that in a sort of sense, I have done that regularly, not regularly, periodically. I love to write. I do a lot of writing in my current position and a lot of emails. When I'm just sending emails, I'm just sending them. It's not a big deal. But when I have a longer email or one that is potentially more fraught with challenges, difficulties, maybe I need to explain something that is controversial to folks, that kind of thing, I will create the email and then oftentimes run it through like a chat GPT or Copilot and ask for suggestions. And then it will give me some suggestions and I will accept some of them. Most of the time it's grammatical, things even for me where I'm definitely, a grammarian, love grammar. But just having another set of eyes, so to speak, on it. So to me, that is absolutely an aspect of co-creating. Now, some of my colleagues prefer with those kinds of emails where it's a tough topic that they go to it and they put in the parameters of what they want, and then something's generated and then they edit and revise from there. So that's also another type of co-creating.
Well, I think just on that point, you make a I think a really good point in terms of stages of authorship,
Yeah.
because authorship can occur if we are creating a business plan, if we are building a car engine, or if we're authoring an email. Some prefer to independently draft so the content is getting out and it's the core content is coming from that individual, like you did, and reappropriating, or I should say leveraging AI as a peer reviewer for
Yes.
mechanical and even going back and forth through what some call prompt engineering. I think I see opportunities as in getting into principles of classical rhetoric where you can go back and forth with questions until you get to a point where you no longer need the technology. Whereas others, they may have an idea of what they're doing, but they may struggle, for example, with organizing writing. And if you've got, say, for example, like me, I have 2 jobs, a spouse, 2 children, and my goal may not be the process of authoring an email because that's something I know I'm already capable of doing, but actually leveraging AI to do work that I'm not looking to learn or specialize in. So there are a lot of open possibilities. One thing going back to your work is the connection between human beings is
Yeah.
so vital, and something that is a concern of mine of using AI, or frankly, people being addicted, doom scrolling their phones on social media, is when we're facilitating education, to not forget that some of the best aspects of college, and especially going back, I think of elementary school, is the bond that happens when we co-create together. Uh, and that is something that can't be sacrificed. Okay, that's great. My next question.
Before we
y-
move
Yeah,
to that, Professor Gerchick,
sure.
just to follow up on that real quickly, um, I think that that connection to humans that you mentioned is so essential, which goes back to the co-creating. Too often, I have seen people use AI as a quick response to do all of the work. And I had a situation where I wrote an email to someone that is uh, in a higher position than me, and I respect very much, and I was asking some questions, and the person obviously used AI to respond to me. And it was very clear that they did not go back and co-create, adjust the email a little bit and make it specific to me. And it felt dismissive to me, and a little offensive. And then a little bit later, I was having a conversation with that person, and the person said something and said, "Well, you didn't address this with me." And I said, "Well, I did send you an email, but because the person used AI as a response, they had not processed my questions, and thus they had not remembered that they had responded to me in the affirmative." So I was then in a position of sort of being chastised for something. And so all of that felt very, for a lack of better word, icky, that's the kind of thing that we have to avoid with AI, and we need that human connection, that co-creating. So that to me felt like a very poor usage of AI, despite this person's proponency of AI.
And I think that's a teachable moment, because when
Yeah.
we talk about ethos appeal, credibility, uh, that's the kind of thing where, be it a person in position of authority or a student turning in a project, that ethos appeal, I would argue, the rhetorical triangle, logos, pathos, and ethos. Ethos is the hardest to build and the easiest to tear down in a moment.
Yes.
And I also think your commentary sheds light that, for example, in my own iSearch, I kept typing in instructional AI into databases, and I wasn't getting much for results. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, I'm struggling with this term. And it suggested to me that try these 50 different search terms that are somewhat related to instructional AI. And that helped me find better keyword searches and get to the reading of the articles. However, ChatGPT, I can also upload an article and say, please summarize this and give me the bullet points. And that doesn't take me through the healthy, I like to call it the healthy struggle of learning and piecing together a complex idea to understand the deeper meaning and what I can gain from a reading. And especially as a professor that is really a proponent of integrated reading and writing as a process, AI can detract from that by doing the legwork and giving you a summary, which would make it not no really different than me buying a Cliff's Notes in the 1990s to have an interpretation of Pride and Prejudice instead of doing the reading myself.
Yeah, you're getting a summary rather than thinking about the content.
And the
Yeah.
thinking is the act of learning. Absolutely. Great addition. Um, on the topic of consulting those higher up, I have zero administrative experience other than being a leader in some cadres and some professional learning communities at the high school level. I am looking for a developed, almost guidebook or guideline from an administrative perspective on the ethical use of AI. I'm I've struggled a little bit finding a really credible go-to resource for this. Do you have any suggestions or ideas on how you can help me locate a resource like this?
It's interesting that you asked this, Billy. Professor Gerchick, I am getting inundated in my role with webinars, conferences, um, yes, material about using AI, ethical use of AI in higher ed. And I'm sorry, please excuse me for half a second. My dog, I'm working from home today. My dog wants to be let out of the office. Um,
That's okay. We'll have some fun from this, just for fun. That's our dog. That's our dog, Homie, who has no interest in being left outside. He is napping on the couch as we speak. So our dogs come first. We know this.
they do, and it's better to let her out now before she starts barking and pawing at the door.
Understood.
Um, so in terms of the guidance, the suggestions, I have not seen much written work on this yet. There's not a lot of white papers, which is instructional, research-based for often used for businesses and higher education. Um, I have not seen a lot of pamphlets or toolboxes written. They're called toolboxes kits. Um, but lots and lots of webinars and seminars. Um, where I have taken some of this guidance is going to some of these events and then working like with our AI folks. And that's where we put together a syllabus policy for the college. And so that gives faculty the options and the language in terms of how they might want to use AI in their courses. Um, it doesn't necessarily address all of the ethical aspects, which this reminds me, I now have come across a chart of what might be considered how you can use something more ethically. And that's something I do want to share with faculty. Um, so, this is still being developed. I think about a year and a half ago is when this really exploded into higher ed, and we were at CAC some of the first folks in the English department to say we need to have conversations about AI. And it's just continued from there. And I think probably another year or two from now, we will have more formalized or written um, guidelines for that, but right now it's more verbal, it's more conversational.
Absolutely. I think this is also a good opportunity to, if I'm going to practice screen sharing, and for
Perfect.
students, screen sharing is something that if you're not familiar with the tool can be clunky and it can be a barrier to continuity in a web conference or an interview. So what I'm going to do, because I think this is certainly relevant for the moment, I became aware last spring, and I'm sharing Arizona State University's artificial intelligence page, something that really piqued my curiosity was when I found out in January of 2024 that ASU became the first university or college on the planet to have a full partnership with OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, DALL-E, etc. And so this is very much in flux, but a page like this I'm using because we have a whole university that is sharing as we're all working our way through AI. And by the way, my struggles have been the same as yours. Finding one solid source of guidelines, because this is brand new scholarship, at least for us. This is so new to us. And I look forward to, let me just say that if you would like to share that graphic on ethical usage, I would be happy to teach that in my courses and give some feedback if that informs you. And I would appreciate it as well for this project. So thank you very much for the resource, and I'll follow up asking for that. Um,
Good.
Stopping the screen sharing and getting to the last question, which I recommend that my students end every interview with this. This comes a little bit from my time as a high school journalist, as well as teaching high school journalism for many years. The last question that you may ask about an interview is, well, Doc, what did I miss? Please share any resources, thoughts, or ideas that I could learn more, or anything else you would like to discuss regarding this topic. And for my students, briefly, I think the importance of ending an interview this way, maybe your interviewee has something that he or she wanted to talk about, or maybe you weren't thinking about something, not through any lack of your preparation, but maybe you just don't have the foundation in those perspectives. So that open-ended question allows your expert the opportunity to take the direction wherever they choose to conclude things. So, is there anything that you'd like to discuss?
Thank you for that. That is an excellent question. Um, Maybe instead of so much on the AI, I would also just piggyback on what you have been um, doing in terms of sharing, interviewing techniques and ideas for students. I think what you did in terms of doing the screen sharing right now and going through this process with me um, is exactly the kind of thing I would recommend to a student is just take 3 minutes and get on um, their particular streaming site, Teams, for example, before they actually do the interview and practice with the buttons, locate the chat button so they know that it's not going to show up initially. They have to click on it. They can see how many people are in the room. They can share their screen and then toggle back and forth with what that looks like. I mean, if I share my screen right now with you, there's going to be a couple of different options, a window, a screen. I can add different backgrounds. And so all of that can be really distracting initially if students haven't kind of looked at it or practiced with that. And then when I do share my screen, it may take a minute for it to pop up, and now you come down in this little small window. For some students, this may not be a big deal, but for others, just kind of being familiar with it it's like driving a car. You're so focused on it being unique at first, and now like it's so automatic. um, and then I really appreciated your ending question and the fact that you had 5 questions. I did a lot of interviewing of people for my dissertation in my graduate work. And in grad school, it was typically recommended like 5 questions, no more. It's too overwhelming. We've already at this point, gone a little bit over time. And so 5 questions is really a supportive time. And I would always try to have people aim if they're thinking that it'll be a 45-minute interview, then book an hour. If they think it's going to be a half hour, book 45 minutes because there may be technology delays. There may be someone who talks a lot and wants to add extra things, to the questions. I do think this last question is the kind of thing where you can often from your interviewer, no, your interviewee, sorry, get some of those really great quotes that then can go in a paper or a presentation that, hey, this expert said this. So.
Absolutely. And ours is a case in point. So I have taken up at least 46 minutes and 33 seconds of your time. And I'm really grateful for you spending the extra time. I hadn't even thought about that on the scheduling side. And I hope if you've watched this video to this point, which I hope you all do, I hope we gather a key takeaway from my end. What I even gained from this is if it's turning into a conversation, that is great. A little bit of structure and no more than those 5 questions, and a fluent conversation between 2 respectful colleagues or a student and a topic expert. That's the kind of thing that gains real knowledge and learning exchange. I don't expect I can tell you, I'll probably take 5 or 6 quotes at most from this interview, but the conversational aspect of it allows for real learning. And that's the focus of an interview, and that's the focus of this project. So Doc, thank you very much for your time. I hope you spend some time with your dog or do whatever it is to reward yourself for giving us extra time. Thank you very much, and I'll follow up.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.
Does it automatically, sorry, I'll cut this off when I edit it. Does it automatically like do the recording now?
Now you should go into those 3 dots and do stop recording.
Got it.
And that may be another thing to mention to the students, that you can stop the recording and then we can